The August heat pressed down on the exclusive Westlake Hills neighborhood of Austin, Texas, where massive oak trees cast shadows across manicured lawns and security gates. Behind the imposing iron fence of the Maxwell estate, a sprawling Georgian-style mansion with gleaming white columns, Imani Johnson wiped sweat from her brow as she polished the mahogany dining table for the third time that morning. At 42, Imani had spent nearly 7 years working as the head housekeeper for Richard Maxwell, tech mogul and founder of Max Tech Solutions. The position paid well above average, enough to support her teenage son's college fund. But the cost came in silent indignities and exhausting vigilance. "Those water spots better be gone by noon," came the sharp voice of Mrs. Diana Maxwell from the doorway, her slim figure impeccably dressed in designer athleisure wear despite the early hour. "Richard's having the board members over for drinks this evening." "Yes, ma'am," Imani replied, keeping her eyes on the gleaming surface. "I've already prepared the crystal glasses and arranged the bar as Mr. Maxwell requested." Diana's cold blue eyes swept over Imani's work before she turned on her heel, leaving behind the lingering scent of expensive perfume. Imani's shoulders relaxed slightly as the clicking of Diana's shoes faded down the hallway. The Maxwell household operated with clockwork precision. Richard demanded it. His morning coffee at exactly 6:30 a.m., newspapers arranged in order of importance, his suits color-coded and rotated according to his meticulous schedule. The staff knew better than to deviate. Those who couldn't maintain his standards didn't last a week. As Imani moved to the kitchen to check on lunch preparations, she glanced at her phone. A text from her son Marcus. "Got the scholarship interview next Thursday." Pride swelled in her chest. Everything she endured here was for him. The house hummed with pre-event tension as the staff prepared for the evening gathering. In the kitchen, Miguel, the chef, orchestrated the preparation of elegant hors d'oeuvres, while 2 younger maids arranged fresh flowers throughout the first floor. Through the windows, Imani could see Thomas, the groundskeeper, directing his team to touch up the already immaculate garden. "He fired Stephanie this morning," whispered Zoe, the newest maid, barely 22 with anxious eyes. "She accidentally mixed up his itinerary pages." Imani nodded, unsurprised. "That's the 3rd assistant this year. Is he always this?" "Yes," Imani cut her off gently. "Just follow the protocols and you'll be fine." At precisely 2:17 p.m., as Imani was inspecting the guest bathroom, a movement at the service entrance caught her eye. Through the small window, she spotted a figure hesitating by the back gate. A woman, thin and disheveled, wearing what looked like several layers of clothing despite the Texas heat. Strange, Imani thought. Visitors, especially uninvited ones, never used the service entrance. Curiosity drew her closer to the window. The woman stood just inside the gate now, clutching something to her chest. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face gaunt but young, maybe early 30s. There was something in her posture, a tightly coiled tension that triggered Imani's instincts. Imani stepped outside into the sweltering heat. "Ma'am, can I help you? This is private property." The woman's head jerked up, eyes wide with a flash of recognition that confused Imani. Had they met before? No, she would have remembered. The woman started, then stopped, her gaze darting nervously toward the main house. Up close, Imani noticed fading bruises near her temple, partially hidden by wisps of hair. The woman's hands trembled as she clutched what Imani now saw was a manila envelope. "Are you okay?" Imani asked more softly, stepping closer. The stranger's lips pressed together, quivering. She didn't speak, but her eyes. Imani had never seen such desperation, such raw fear. The woman glanced over her shoulder, then back at Imani. A silent plea so powerful it felt like a shout. A chill ran through Imani despite the heat. Something was very wrong. "Do you need help?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. The woman didn't speak. Instead, she slowly extended the envelope toward Imani, her hand shaking violently. When Imani hesitated, the stranger's eyes filled with tears. She gave an almost imperceptible nod, then mouthed what looked like, "Please." The hair on the back of Imani's neck stood up. Cautiously, she took the envelope. That's when she heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway around the front of the house. Richard Maxwell returning early. Panic flashed across the strange woman's face. "Go," Imani whispered urgently. "Go now." The woman backed away, her eyes still locked on Imani with that same desperate intensity. Then she turned and hurried out the service gate, disappearing down the alley that ran behind the estate. Imani quickly tucked the envelope into her uniform pocket and returned inside, her heart pounding. In her 7 years working for the Maxwells, nothing like this had ever happened. The strict security protocols, the screening of all visitors. Richard was obsessive about his privacy. Back in the small staff bathroom, Imani locked the door and pulled out the envelope with trembling fingers. The flap wasn't sealed. Inside was a USB drive, small and black, and a handwritten note on lined paper. "This is what he did to us. Help." Imani stared at the cryptic message, her mind racing. Who was this woman? What was on this drive? And what did it have to do with Richard Maxwell? From outside the bathroom, she heard Diana's sharp voice ordering the staff around, complaining about the flower arrangements. She needed to return to work before she was missed. Carefully sliding the envelope back into her pocket, Imani composed herself and unlocked the door. For the next 3 hours, she moved through her duties mechanically, hyper-aware of the weight of the envelope against her hip. Twice, she nearly collided with Richard himself as he strode through the house, barking orders into his phone. At 5:30 p.m., the first of the board members began arriving. Imani greeted them at the door, took their coats, and directed them to the back terrace where Richard held court. From the kitchen, she watched him through the windows, confident, charming, every inch the successful businessman. His public persona was flawless. "Imani, we need more ice," Miguel called from behind the bar. As she headed to the kitchen's commercial ice maker, her phone buzzed. A news alert. Local woman reported missing. Last seen in Westlake Hills area. Her fingers fumbled as she opened the article. There, staring back at her, was a photo of the woman who had appeared at the service gate just hours before. Angela Turner, 34, research assistant at MaxTech Solutions. Last seen leaving work 2 days ago. Imani's blood ran cold. The missing woman worked for Richard's company. "Everything okay?" Zoe appeared beside her, making Imani jump. "Fine," Imani managed, quickly pocketing her phone. "Just checking on Marcus." But nothing was fine. As she carried the ice bucket back to the bar, she caught Richard's eye across the crowded terrace. He was mid-laugh with a group of executives, but for a split second something cold and calculating flickered across his face as he watched her. Did he know? Had he seen Angela at the gate? Imani looked away quickly, focusing on her tasks. But her mind was racing. The woman's bruises, her terror, the cryptic note. And now, she was officially missing. Back in the kitchen, Imani made a decision. Whatever was happening, she couldn't ignore that desperate plea in Angela's eyes. After ensuring no one was watching, she slipped into the small staff office where an older computer sat on a desk. With shaking hands, she inserted the USB drive. A folder opened automatically, containing dozens of files, emails, spreadsheets, and photographs. Imani clicked on one image at random and immediately recoiled. It showed what appeared to be a makeshift laboratory, with rows of cots occupied by unconscious people hooked to IV bags. Another file contained internal emails from Richard to someone named Dr. Patel, discussing test subjects and pharmaceutical trials with references to bypassing FDA protocols. Phrases like ensuring silence and memory alteration compounds jumped out at her. "What are you doing in here?" Imani startled violently, yanking the USB drive from the computer as she turned to face Diana Maxwell standing in the doorway, her perfect features arranged in suspicious disdain. I was just checking my email, Mrs. Maxwell. Marcus has a scholarship interview and you know personal business is to be conducted during breaks only," Diana interrupted coldly. "The guests need fresh towels in the powder room. Now." "Yes, ma'am. Right away." Imani's heart hammered as she slipped past Diana, feeling the other woman's eyes boring into her back. Had she seen the USB drive? The files? No. Diana would have said something immediately if she had. As the evening progressed, Imani couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Richard seemed to appear in every room she entered, his conversation never faltering, but his eyes following her movements. Once, when she passed him in the hallway, he reached out and gripped her upper arm, stopping her. "Everything running smoothly tonight, Imani?" he asked, his voice pleasant, but his fingers digging into her flesh. "Yes, sir," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. The guests seemed to be enjoying themselves. He studied her face for a long moment, his smile never reaching his eyes. "You've been with us for quite some time now. My wife and I value loyalty above all else." It wasn't a statement. It was a warning. "Of course, Mr. Maxwell," she murmured. He released her arm and continued down the hall, leaving Imani shaking. By 10 p.m., the last guests were departing. Imani helped them retrieve their coats, exchanging pleasantries on autopilot, while her mind whirled with horrific possibilities. What had Angela Turner uncovered? What was Richard Maxwell hiding behind his philanthropist facade? As the staff cleaned up, Imani made her decision. In the privacy of her small room in the staff quarters, she stared at her phone, the USB drive clutched in her other hand. The weight of what she was about to do pressed down on her. If she was wrong, she would lose her job, the job that was putting Marcus through college. But if she was right, her fingers trembled as she dialed. 3 simple numbers. 911, what's your emergency? Imani took a deep breath. My name is Imani Johnson. I work at 4728 Westlake Drive. I have evidence of illegal human experimentation and possibly kidnapping being conducted by Richard Maxwell of Max Tech Solutions. There was a pause on the line. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? I don't know, Imani answered truthfully. But a woman named Angela Turner came here today. She's been reported missing and she gave me evidence. I think she's in danger. Maybe others too. Stay on the line, ma'am. Officers are being dispatched to your location. As Imani waited, heart pounding, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Heavy, deliberate footsteps that stopped right outside her door. The handle turned slowly. Richard Maxwell stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable as his eyes moved from Imani's face to the phone in her hand. Who are you talking to, Imani? He asked softly. Behind him, in the shadows of the hallway, Diana appeared, her perfect features twisted with rage. In her hand was a small object that gleamed in the dim light, a syringe. Imani swallowed hard, clutching the phone tightly. They're already on their way, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. It's over, Mr. Maxwell. In the distance, barely audible, came the first wail of approaching sirens. The sirens grew louder, their wail cutting through the pristine quiet of Westlake Hills. For a moment, Richard Maxwell remained perfectly still in Imani's doorway, his expression transitioning from disbelief to calculation. The mask of the charming tech mogul slipped away, revealing something cold and reptilian beneath. Diana, he said without turning around, his voice eerily calm. Call Harrison. Now. Diana hesitated, the syringe still clutched in her manicured hand. Richard, we should… Now! The single word exploded from him with such force that both women flinched. Diana disappeared down the hallway, her footsteps rapid and uneven. Richard's gaze never left Imani, who stood gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles had gone white. You have no idea what you've done, he said quietly. 7 years, Imani. 7 years you've been in my home, eaten my food, cashed my checks, and this is how you repay loyalty? What you're doing isn't right, Imani said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Those people in the photos… A flash of genuine surprise crossed his face. So she showed you. I wondered what Angela might have taken when she disappeared. He shook his head almost regretfully. You could have come to me. We could have discussed a reasonable compensation for your discretion. The sirens were close now, maybe at the end of the driveway. Imani heard shouting from elsewhere in the house. The other staff members, confused by the commotion. Richard checked his watch with deliberate casualness. Do you know what the average response time is for police in this neighborhood, Imani? 7 minutes. Do you know how long it takes my security team? 3. A thin smile spread across his face. And they arrived 2 minutes ago. A crash echoed from the front of the house, followed by authoritative voices shouting, Police! Everyone stay where you are! Relief flooded through Imani, making her knees weak. But Richard didn't look concerned. Instead, he stepped back from the doorway. We'll talk again soon, he said, the threat unmistakable. Then he was gone, striding confidently toward the commotion. Imani stood frozen for several seconds before her instincts kicked in. The USB drive. She needed to make sure the police got it. She grabbed her small crossbody bag, tucked the drive securely inside, and hurried toward the main part of the house. The scene that greeted her was controlled chaos. 4 police officers stood in the massive foyer, while Richard spoke calmly with who appeared to be the officer in charge. Diana hovered nearby, her perfect composure restored, though her eyes darted nervously around the room. Several confused staff members huddled by the kitchen door. Absolutely outrageous, Richard was saying, his tone reasonable yet indignant. I understand you have to follow up on all calls, but I can assure you there's been a terrible misunderstanding. The lead officer, a heavy-set man with graying hair and the name Capt. Reeves on his badge, nodded thoughtfully. His eyes scanned the room and landed on Imani as she approached. Are you the woman who called 911? He asked directly. Before she could answer, Richard interjected smoothly. This is Imani Johnson, one of our household staff. There's been an unfortunate situation brewing that I wasn't fully aware of until tonight. He turned to Imani with a concerned expression so convincing it nearly made her doubt her own memories. Imani, you should have come to me directly with your concerns about Angela. Captain Reeves looked between them. Ms. Johnson, you mentioned evidence of illegal experimentation and kidnapping when you called. Do you have this evidence with you? Imani felt all eyes in the room on her. Richard's gaze was particularly intense, though his face maintained an expression of concerned confusion. She clutched her bag tighter. Yes, I have it here, she said, reaching into her bag. A woman, Angela Turner, came to the house today. She works for Mr. Maxwell's company and has been reported missing. She gave me this USB drive with Angela Turner, Richard interrupted, his forehead creasing with apparent worry. My God, she's been found. Is she all right? Sir, Captain Reeves raised a hand, silencing Richard. Ms. Johnson, please continue. Imani withdrew the USB drive. She gave me this. It has photos of some kind of secret lab with people who look drugged or unconscious, and emails about illegal trials, bypassing FDA regulations. Reeves took the drive, studying it with a frown. And you say Ms. Turner is the one who provided this to you today? The same woman who was reported missing yesterday? Yes, Imani confirmed. She came to the service entrance this afternoon. She looked terrified, had bruises on her face. She couldn't even speak, just handed me this and ran away. Richard let out a long sigh, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Captain, I believe I understand what's happening here. Angela Turner was terminated from MaxTech 3 weeks ago for increasingly erratic behavior. Our HR department was concerned about her mental health. This, he gestured at the USB drive, is likely part of some delusional vendetta. Imani stared at him in disbelief. That's not true. The news alert about her disappearance just came out today. It said she was last seen leaving work 2 days ago. Ms. Johnson, Richard's voice was gentle now, patronizing. Angela hasn't worked at MaxTech for nearly a month. The company filed a restraining order against her last week after she made threatening calls to several executives. I'm surprised she managed to access the property today. Our security protocols are usually quite effective. Captain Reeves looked troubled. We'll need to verify all this, of course. The missing person report for Angela Turner was indeed filed yesterday by her sister, who claimed Angela texted her about uncovering something big at her workplace. Her sister? Richard nodded knowingly. Melissa, I believe? She's been enabling Angela's delusions. Our company psychologist reached out to her several times offering resources. The confident way he spun these lies made Imani's head spin. How could he have answers for everything so quickly? It was as if he'd prepared for this exact scenario. Captain, Imani interjected desperately, please just look at what's on that drive, the photos alone. We certainly will, Reeves assured her, pocketing the USB. Mr. Maxwell, we'll need to take statements from everyone here, and I'd like permission to look around the property. Of course, Richard agreed immediately. My home is an open book, though I would appreciate if this could be handled discreetly. These kinds of sensational accusations can do tremendous damage, even when proven false. As the officers dispersed through the house, Diana sidled up to Richard, whispering something in his ear. He gave a barely perceptible nod before approaching Captain Reeves again. Captain, I've just been informed that our security system captured footage of Angela Turner at our service entrance today. I had no idea she'd managed to get onto the property. Would you like to review that footage now? It might help in locating her. Reeves looked surprised but nodded. That would be helpful, yes. Richard led the captain toward his study, pausing briefly beside Imani. Please help the officers however you can, he said, loud enough for others to hear. Then, in a whisper meant only for her, you're playing a game you don't understand the rules of. For the next hour, Imani answered questions from a young officer named Rodriguez who took careful notes but revealed nothing in his expression. Yes, she had worked for the Maxwells for 7 years. No, she had never met Angela Turner before today. Yes, she had viewed some of the files on the USB drive. Through the open door of Richard's study, she could see him and Captain Reeves reviewing security footage on a large monitor. Richard was talking animatedly, gesturing at the screen, while Reeves nodded periodically. The other staff members were gathered in the kitchen, their expressions ranging from confused to frightened. Miguel caught Imani's eye as she passed, giving her a questioning look. She couldn't bring herself to explain, not while everything hung in such precarious balance. Finally, Richard emerged from his study with Captain Reeves, both men looking grave but for entirely different reasons, Imani suspected. "We've reviewed the security footage," Reeves announced to the assembled officers. "It confirms that Angela Turner was indeed on the property today and did speak briefly with Ms. Johnson. Given Ms. Turner's current missing status and the unusual nature of her behavior in the footage, we'll be taking this investigation very seriously." Relief flooded through Imani. At least they believed that part of her story. "However," Reeves continued, "Mr. Maxwell has provided documentation regarding Ms. Turner's employment termination and subsequent concerning behavior. We'll need to consider all angles here." Richard stepped forward, his expression the perfect blend of concern and determination. "Captain, I want to be absolutely clear. I fully support this investigation. If Angela is in trouble, I want her found safely. And if there are any improprieties happening at MaxTech without my knowledge, I want them exposed. My company has always operated with the highest ethical standards." His performance was masterful, the concerned CEO, shocked by potential wrongdoing within his company. Imani fought to keep her expression neutral. The man was either a sociopath or the world's greatest actor. "Ms. Johnson," Captain Reeves turned to her, "given the sensitive nature of this situation, we'd like you to come to the station to provide a more detailed statement. Would you be willing to do that now?" "Of course," Imani said without hesitation. Anywhere was better than remaining in this house with Richard and Diana. "I'll have someone drive you home afterward," Richard offered magnanimously. "And Imani, please take tomorrow off. With pay, of course. This has clearly been distressing for you." The false concern in his voice made her skin crawl, but she nodded stiffly. As she gathered her purse and phone, preparing to leave with the officers, her phone buzzed with a text. "Unknown number. Parking garage, level 3, blue sedan, 11 p.m. Help her." Imani's heart raced. Was it from Angela? How had she gotten Imani's number? She quickly deleted the message, aware of Diana watching her closely from across the room. The ride to the police station was tense and quiet. Officer Rodriguez drove while Imani stared out the window, her mind racing. What had she stumbled into? What would happen next? And most urgently, what about the mysterious text message? The downtown police station wasn't far from several parking garages. Could she somehow slip away after giving her statement? At the station, Imani was led to a small interview room with harsh fluorescent lighting. For 2 hours, she repeated her story to different officers, answering the same questions multiple times. They showed her the security footage from the Maxwell estate, grainy but clear enough to show Angela at the service entrance, handing something to Imani. There was no audio, but the desperation in the woman's body language was evident even in the poor quality video. "The tech team is analyzing the contents of the USB drive now," a detective named Walsh explained. "But these things take time, especially if the data is encrypted or damaged." "It wasn't encrypted," Imani insisted. "I opened it easily on the staff computer." Walsh made a note. "And you said there were photos of some kind of lab facility?" "Yes. People on cots hooked up to IVs. It looked wrong. And there were emails about bypassing FDA protocols, testing on subjects. Did you recognize the facility in the photos? Any identifying features?" Imani thought hard. "No. It could have been anywhere. A warehouse, maybe?" The walls were plain, industrial looking. At 10:47 p.m., Detective Walsh finally seemed satisfied. "Ms. Johnson, we appreciate your cooperation. An officer will drive you home now." Imani hesitated. "Actually, I need to pick up some medication from the 24-hour pharmacy downtown before heading home. My son has asthma." The lie felt clumsy on her tongue, but it was the best she could manage on short notice. Walsh nodded. "I'll have Officer Rodriguez drop you at the pharmacy then." As they drove through the quiet downtown streets, Imani's anxiety mounted. What was she doing? This could be a trap. But what if Angela was in real danger? What if there were others? "This pharmacy okay?" Rodriguez asked as they approached a CVS with a green neon sign. "Yes, perfect," Imani answered, gathering her purse. "Thank you. Do you want me to wait?" he offered. "I can drive you home after." "No, thank you. My apartment is just a few blocks from here. I could use the fresh air after." "Everything." Rodriguez looked uncertain, but nodded. "Take care, Ms. Johnson. We'll be in touch if we have more questions." Imani waited until his patrol car had disappeared around the corner before hurrying down the street. The nearest parking garage was 2 blocks away, the Central Plaza structure. She checked her phone, 10:56 p.m. Heart pounding, she quickened her pace. The garage was nearly empty at this hour, her footsteps echoing ominously as she climbed the concrete stairs to level 3. What if this was a setup? What if Richard had somehow sent that text to lure her away from the police? She emerged onto the third level, keys clutched between her fingers as a makeshift weapon. The floor contained perhaps a dozen scattered vehicles, most clustered near the elevator. At the far end, partially hidden behind a support column, sat a dark blue sedan with tinted windows. Imani approached cautiously. As she drew near, the driver's side window lowered a few inches. In the dim lighting, she could make out a woman's face. Not Angela Turner, but someone else. Older, with short gray hair and glasses. "Are you Imani Johnson?" the woman asked in a low voice. "Who are you?" Imani countered, maintaining her distance. "My name is Dr. Eleanor Chen. I worked with Angela at MaxTech." She glanced nervously around the garage. "Please, get in. We don't have much time." Imani hesitated. "How do I know I can trust you?" Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "You don't. But right now, I'm Angela's only hope. And possibly yours too." She leaned across to push open the passenger door. "Richard Maxwell has people everywhere in this city, including the police department. The evidence you handed over, it will mysteriously corrupt or disappear by morning. I've seen it happen before." A chill ran through Imani. The smooth way Richard had handled the police, the immediate production of documents about Angela's termination, it had all seemed too prepared. "Where's Angela now?" she asked, taking a step closer to the car. "Safe for the moment, but she needs medical attention." Dr. Chen checked her watch impatiently. "Ms. Johnson, every minute we stand here increases the risk. Those bruises you saw on Angela, that was after 2 days in Richard's care. I helped her escape, but she's not the only one. There are others." The weight of the decision pressed down on Imani. If she got into this car, she might be putting herself in terrible danger. If she walked away, she might be abandoning Angela and others to a fate she couldn't even imagine. And what about Marcus? If she disappeared, what would happen to her son? As if reading her thoughts, Dr. Chen spoke again. "I know you have a son. Marcus, right? Honor roll student applying for engineering scholarships?" When Imani's eyes widened in surprise, Chen continued. "Angela told me. She's been watching the Maxwell household for weeks, planning how to get evidence out safely. She chose you specifically, Imani. Said you had kind eyes and a strong spine." Something in the woman's earnest tone made Imani believe her. Taking a deep breath, she slid into the passenger seat and pulled the door shut. Dr. Chen immediately put the car in drive, maneuvering quickly through the garage toward the exit. "Thank you for trusting me. I know this is a lot to process." "Where are we going?" Imani asked, fastening her seatbelt as the car accelerated down the ramp. "Somewhere Richard's influence doesn't reach," Chen replied cryptically, checking her mirrors. "But first, we need to make sure you weren't followed. And I should warn you, once you see what I'm about to show you, there's no going back to your old life, at least not until Richard Maxwell is behind bars." As the sedan emerged from the garage into the night, Imani gazed back at the illuminated city skyline. Somewhere in one of those gleaming buildings, evidence that could expose Richard Maxwell was probably already being buried or destroyed. And somewhere in the city, her son was sleeping peacefully, unaware that his mother had just stepped off the edge of her known world into something dark and dangerous. Dr. Chen made a series of quick turns, expertly weaving through late-night traffic. "I need to know exactly what Angela showed you," she said, her eyes never leaving the road. "What files did you see on that drive? Photos of some kind of lab, people on cots with IVs, emails about trials and bypassing FDA protocols." Imani recounted. "I only had a few minutes before Diana caught me." Chen nodded grimly. "Project Lazarus, Richard's little side venture, unauthorized trials of experimental memory-altering drugs. The legitimate research was rejected by the FDA 3 years ago for extreme safety concerns, but Richard couldn't let it go. The potential profits were too enormous." "Memory-altering drugs?" Imani echoed, horrified. "Those people in the photos? Test subjects. Some volunteers lured with promises of money, others acquired through less voluntary means. People no one would miss. Or so Richard thought. Chen's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Angela was my research assistant. We were supposed to be developing treatments for PTSD and Alzheimer's, but when we discovered samples being diverted and falsified data, we started investigating." They were heading out of downtown now toward the east side of Austin. The neighborhoods grew progressively less affluent, the streets darker. "Does Angela have family looking for her?" Imani asked, thinking of the news alert about her disappearance. "Just her sister, Melissa. They're close." When Angela realized how dangerous Richard was, she sent Melissa enough information to go to the police if anything happened to her. Chen's expression darkened. Richard's people got to her first, though. Fed her some story about Angela having a mental breakdown. The missing person report was Melissa's last-ditch attempt to find her sister before believing their lies. The car turned down a poorly lit street lined with small industrial buildings. Many appeared abandoned, their windows dark and doors secured with heavy chains. Almost there, Chen murmured, slowing as they approached what looked like a defunct auto repair shop. She pressed a small remote, and a side door began to roll up, revealing a dimly lit interior. The car slipped inside, and the door immediately closed behind them. Imani tensed, suddenly aware of how completely she had placed herself in this stranger's hands. But as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw something that made her breath catch, a makeshift medical area in the corner of the garage, where a slight figure lay on a cot. Angela Turner. Angela Turner lay on the cot, her face even paler than when Imani had seen her at the service entrance. An IV drip was attached to her arm, and medical monitors beeped softly beside her. Her eyes were closed, but her breathing seemed regular. Standing beside her was a young man in scrubs who looked up sharply as they entered. "She's stable," he said to Dr. Chen before Imani could ask. "Pulse is stronger, but she's still not waking up for more than a few minutes at a time." Dr. Chen nodded, approaching Angela's bedside. "This is Imani Johnson from the Maxwell household. She's the one Angela reached out to." She turned to Imani. "This is David Park, former medical researcher at MaxTech, now our underground medic." David gave Imani a tight nod. "Angela's been asking for you when she's conscious. Something about making sure you got the files?" "I did," Imani confirmed, moving closer to the cot. "I gave them to the police, but Dr. Chen thinks they might disappear." "They will," David said flatly. "Richard has half the department in his pocket. Donations to the police foundation, college funds for their kids, vacation homes borrowed for family retreats. The evidence never sticks." The enormity of what she had stepped into was beginning to dawn on Imani. If Richard Maxwell truly had this kind of influence, what chance did they have of exposing him? "Why me?" she asked, looking down at Angela's unconscious form. "Why did she come to me specifically?" Dr. Chen pulled up a folding chair for Imani. "Sit. This is going to be a long night." As Imani settled into the chair, Chen continued. Angela observed the household for weeks before making her move. She needed someone Richard wouldn't immediately suspect. Someone with access to the house but not directly involved in the company. Someone trustworthy. "She said you had kind eyes," David added, checking Angela's IV. "And that you once stood up to Richard when he berated a gardener over some trivial mistake. Said that told her everything she needed to know about your character." Imani remembered that incident from nearly a year ago. Richard had been screaming at Thomas's teenage assistant for accidentally trimming the topiary incorrectly. The poor kid had been near tears. Imani had intervened, calmly suggesting that she take over supervising the garden work that day. Richard had been surprised enough by her interruption that he'd backed down. She hadn't realized anyone had noticed or remembered. "What exactly is Project Lazarus?" Imani asked, forcing her attention back to the crisis at hand. "You mentioned memory-altering drugs?" Dr. Chen pulled over another chair. 5 years ago, MaxTech's pharmaceutical division developed a compound that showed promise for treating severe PTSD by allowing patients to access and reconsolidate traumatic memories in a controlled environment. The science was sound, but early trials revealed dangerous side effects. Memory loss, personality changes, even psychosis in some cases. The FDA shut it down, David interjected, but Richard was convinced it could be refined. The potential market was enormous. Not just PTSD treatment, but memory enhancement for students, executives, military personnel. When legitimate research channels were closed, Chen continued, Richard moved the operation underground. He created a shell company, Neurogen Analytics, to continue the work off the books. They set up a lab in an abandoned MaxTech storage facility outside the city. That's where those photos were taken. Imani shook her head in disbelief. But how does he find subjects? A pained expression crossed Chen's face. Various methods. Some are homeless individuals promised money and shelter. Others are undocumented immigrants lured with promises of help with their status. And some are people who threatened to expose him. David finished grimly. Former employees who asked too many questions. Angela stirred on the cot, her eyelids fluttering. Immediately, David checked her vitals while Dr. Chen moved closer, taking her hand. "Angela, can you hear me?" Angela's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. Then her gaze sharpened. landing on Imani. Recognition dawned, followed by visible relief. "You came," she whispered, her voice raspy. "Did you get the files?" "I did," Imani assured her. "I gave them to the police." A shadow crossed Angela's face. "Won't work. His people, everywhere." "We know," Dr. Chen said gently. "But Imani is here now. She can help us another way." Angela struggled to sit up, wincing with the effort. David moved to assist her, adjusting pillows behind her back. "Need to tell her everything," Angela insisted, her eyes locked on Imani's. "What he did to me, what he's doing to them." "Save your strength," Chen urged. "We can—" "No," Angela interrupted with surprising force. "She risked everything. Deserves the truth." Imani leaned closer. "I'm listening." Angela took a shaky breath. "I worked in Dr. Chen's lab. 3 years. We were researching memory modulation for PTSD, Alzheimer's. Legitimate work." She paused, gathering strength. 6 months ago, noticed discrepancies in our supply logs. Compounds missing, data altered. We started investigating quietly, Chen added. Found evidence of an off-site facility, unauthorized trials. "I accessed Richard's private server," Angela continued, each word clearly an effort. "Found emails, project outlines. Not just testing the drugs, weaponizing them." "Weaponizing?" Imani repeated, confused. "Memory erasure," David explained. "Targeted removal of specific memories while leaving the rest of the mind intact. Military applications primarily. Or silencing witnesses," Angela added darkly. "I downloaded everything I could find. Planned to take it to the FBI, bypass local authorities." Her face crumpled. "But he found out somehow. Came to my apartment himself with 2 men." She fell silent, trembling slightly. Dr. Chen squeezed her hand supportively. "You don't have to." "I do," Angela insisted. 3 days in that facility. They tested different formulations on me. Tried to make me forget what I'd found. But the drugs, they don't work perfectly. Memories fragment, return in pieces." Imani felt sick. "How did you escape?" "Dr. Chen," Angela said, gratitude evident in her voice. "She'd been searching for me. Found out where they were keeping me. We had another insider at the facility," Chen explained. "He helped get her out during a shift change, but she was already heavily drugged." "Still am," Angela admitted, her speech slowing. "Fighting it, but comes in waves, hard to. Stay present." David checked the monitors again. "Her heart rate's elevating, she needs rest." Angela shook her head stubbornly. "Need to tell her the plan. Why we needed someone inside the house." "I'll explain," Chen assured her. "You need to conserve your strength, Angela." Reluctantly, Angela nodded, sinking back against the pillows. Her eyelids were already drooping, the brief surge of energy fading. Dr. Chen guided Imani away from the cot, toward a small table in the corner of the makeshift hideout. The space, Imani now noticed, contained not just medical equipment, but also computers, filing cabinets, and what looked like a small living area with cots and a hot plate. "How many of you are there?" she asked quietly. 6, including Angela, Chen replied, keeping her voice low. "All former MaxTech employees who discovered pieces of the truth, all now mentally unstable or missing according to official records." "And what exactly is this plan that needed someone inside the Maxwell house?" Chen's expression was grave. "We've been gathering evidence for months, but it's never enough. Digital files can be called fake, testimonies discredited. We needed something irrefutable, physical evidence from Richard's personal files and, most importantly, the location of the testing facility." "I don't understand. How can I help with that?" "I'm just the housekeeper. A housekeeper who has daily access to Richard's home, including his study, who knows the household routines, the security protocols." Chen leaned forward. "Richard keeps a physical logbook, old school, handwritten. He doesn't trust digital for his most sensitive information." Angela saw it once in his private safe when she was called to his home office to discuss research. Imani's eyes widened. "You want me to steal from his safe? I don't even know the combination." "No," Chen shook her head. "We don't expect you to commit burglary, but you could be our eyes inside. Help us understand when might be the best time to act. Richard will be on high alert now, but eventually, he'll believe the threat has passed. That's when we'll need specific information only you can provide." The weight of what Chen was asking settled heavily on Imani's shoulders. Going back to that house, pretending nothing had happened. Watching and waiting while living under the same roof as a man who had essentially tortured Angela. "My son," she said suddenly. "Marcus." If Richard suspects anything, he could. We've already arranged protection for him, Chen assured her. David's sister lives in the same apartment complex as you. She'll keep an eye on him without his knowledge. And we have contingency plans to get both of you out of Austin if necessary. Imani's head was spinning. This is a lot. I need time to think. I understand, Chen said gently. But time is something we don't have much of. Once Richard realizes you've made contact with us, you'll be in danger too. A sudden thought struck Imani. My phone. Could they track it? David, who had been listening while monitoring Angela, looked up sharply. Absolutely. In fact, we should assume they already have. Imani fumbled in her purse, pulling out her smartphone. Should I? Don't turn it off yet, Chen cautioned. That would alert them immediately. David, get her one of our burners. David nodded and disappeared behind a makeshift partition, returning moments later with a basic flip phone. It's clean. No GPS. We'll need to ditch your current phone somewhere believable. The pharmacy, Imani suggested. I told the police officer I was going there before heading home. Chen nodded approvingly. Good thinking. We'll drive by, you'll leave your phone inside, and then we'll take you home. But not directly. We'll need to make sure you're not followed. Angela's monitor beeped, drawing David's attention back to her. Her vitals are stabilizing, he reported. She should sleep through the night now. Will she recover completely? Imani asked, looking at Angela's pale face. David and Dr. Chen exchanged a glance that sent a chill through Imani. We don't know, Chen admitted. The compounds they used are experimental. The effects could be temporary or they could be permanent, David finished quietly. That's what we're fighting to expose, Imani. It's not just about bringing Richard to justice. It's about stopping these experiments before more people suffer irreversible damage. Imani took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. What exactly do you need me to do? The relief on Chen's face was palpable. For now, just go back to your normal routine. Take the day off Richard offered you. When you return to work, be appropriately subdued but not suspicious. Act as if you've accepted the explanation that Angela was a disturbed ex-employee. Meanwhile, David added, watch for patterns. When Richard uses his safe, whether he mentions Neurogen or Project Lazarus, any unusual visitors or calls. I'll need a way to contact you, Imani pointed out. Without using my regular phone, Chen nodded to the burner phone David had provided. It has one number programmed in, mine. Text only. No calls unless it's an absolute emergency. One message per day, maximum. Simple household updates that wouldn't raise suspicion if intercepted. Imani slipped the burner phone into her inner jacket pocket, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and determination. How long do you think this will take? Impossible to say, Chen replied honestly. Days. Weeks. Richard's paranoia will be at its peak right now, but he's arrogant. Eventually, he'll believe he's neutralized the threat. And that's when we'll make our move, David added, his expression hardening. We have our own evidence. But without the location of that facility and Richard's logbook, it won't be enough to bring him down permanently. Imani nodded slowly, processing everything. I should get home before Marcus wakes up and finds me gone. He already worries enough about me working in that house. Smart kid, Chen commented, standing up. David, stay with Angela. I'll take Imani home. As they prepared to leave, Imani approached Angela's bedside one last time. The young woman was sleeping peacefully now, her breathing steady. Looking at her, Imani felt a surge of protective anger. No one deserved what had been done to her, what was still being done to others in Richard's secret facility. I'll help you, she whispered to Angela's sleeping form. I promise. In that moment, standing in a makeshift medical hideout with people she barely knew, Imani Johnson made a decision that would change the course of not just her life, but potentially many others. The walls of silence that Richard Maxwell had built around his empire had begun to crack, and she was now committed to bringing them down entirely. The first rays of dawn were breaking over Austin when Dr. Chen dropped Imani off 3 blocks from her apartment complex. They had successfully planted her phone at the pharmacy, left, accidentally, on a shelf near the medications, and taken a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed. Remember, Chen said as Imani prepared to exit the car, act normal. The day off is a blessing. Use it to prepare mentally. Text the burner phone once you're safely inside. Imani nodded, clutching her purse with the hidden burner phone. What if the police contact me about my statement? Answer honestly about what you saw, but maintain that you now believe Richard's explanation that Angela was a disturbed ex-employee. Say you were tired and stressed and may have overreacted. Chen's expression was sympathetic but firm. Your safety depends on everyone believing you're no longer a threat. With a deep breath, Imani slipped out of the car and walked briskly toward her apartment building. The familiar sight of the modest complex was surreally comforting after the night's events. Inside her third-floor apartment, she found Marcus still asleep, his bedroom door closed. A wave of protective love washed over her as she peeked in on him. Her brilliant, hard-working son, innocently caught up in something dangerous because of her choices. After sending a brief, safe home text from the burner phone, Imani showered, trying to wash away the tension of the past 24 hours. The hot water couldn't cleanse her mind of the images from Angela's USB drive, or the sight of the young woman lying pale and damaged on that makeshift medical cot. When Marcus emerged from his room 2 hours later, Imani had prepared his favorite breakfast. Chocolate chip pancakes, a rare treat usually reserved for special occasions. "Mom," he questioned, eyeing the spread suspiciously. "What's going on? Why aren't you at work?" Imani forced a smile. "Mr. Maxwell gave me the day off. Thought we could spend some time together before your study group this afternoon." Marcus, tall and lanky at 17 with his father's thoughtful eyes, studied her face. "Something happened, didn't it? You look different." For a moment, Imani considered telling him everything. Marcus was mature beyond his years, already accepted to UT Austin's engineering program on a partial scholarship, but knowledge of what she was involved in would only put him in danger. "Just a little workplace drama," she said lightly, setting a plate of pancakes before him. "Nothing for you to worry about. How's the scholarship application coming along?" The deflection worked, and Marcus launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his latest essay revision. Imani listened attentively, treasuring this normal moment amid the chaos her life had become. After Marcus left for his study group, Imani's phone, her regular one, which she had reported found at the pharmacy and retrieved that morning, rang. Detective Walsh from the police department. "Ms. Johnson," he began formally, "I wanted to update you on our investigation. Our tech team examined the USB drive you provided." Imani's heart raced. "And? What did they find?" There was a slight pause. "I'm afraid the drive was corrupted. Our specialists could only recover fragments, nothing conclusive. Mr. Maxwell has been extremely cooperative, providing access to Ms. Turner's employment records and psychological evaluations. Just as Dr. Chen had predicted." Imani gripped the phone tighter. "But the photos I saw, the emails about illegal trials." "We found no such images," Walsh responded, his tone sympathetic but firm. "The fragments we recovered appeared to be standard research documents, albeit incomplete. Ms. Johnson, given Ms. Turner's documented history of mental health issues and her termination from MaxTech, we believe she may have manipulated these files." Imani closed her eyes, fighting a wave of frustration. "So you're dropping the investigation?" "Not entirely. Ms. Turner is still missing and we're actively looking for her. But the allegations against Mr. Maxwell and MaxTech appear to be unfounded." Walsh's voice softened slightly. "It's not uncommon for witnesses to misinterpret things under stress. You had good intentions." "Yes," Imani forced herself to say, remembering Chen's coaching. "I suppose I might have overreacted. It was a strange situation, and I was worried about that poor woman." "Completely understandable. We'll contact you if we have any further questions." After hanging up, Imani sent a coded text to Chen. "Package lost in transit. Delivery canceled." Their agreed-upon phrase for the evidence being discredited and the investigation dropped. The response came minutes later. "Expected. Proceed as planned." The next morning, Imani returned to the Maxwell estate with a carefully constructed mask of normalcy. Diana greeted her with thinly veiled suspicion, her perfect features arranged in a cold smile. "Feeling better after your day off, Imani? Richard was so concerned about you." "Much better, thank you, Mrs. Maxwell," Imani replied, keeping her eyes appropriately lowered. "I apologize for the disruption. I should have come to Mr. Maxwell directly with my concerns." Diana studied her for a moment. "Yes, you should have. Loyalty is everything in this household, Imani. I hope you remember that." The warning couldn't have been clearer if Diana had spelled it out. Imani simply nodded. "Of course, Mrs. Maxwell. Will there be any changes to today's schedule?" "Richard has canceled the dinner party for Saturday. Otherwise, everything proceeds as normal." Diana turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Richard would like to see you in his study at 11. Imani's stomach tightened, but she maintained her composed expression. "Yes, ma'am." The morning passed in a haze of routine tasks, made surreal by the knowledge of what lay beneath the mansion's perfect surface. The other staff members treated Imani with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Clearly, they'd been told some version of the events but instructed not to discuss them. At precisely 11 o'clock, Imani knocked on Richard's study door. "Enter," came his commanding voice. Richard Maxwell sat behind his massive desk, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his silver-streaked hair perfectly styled. He looked up from his computer screen with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Ah, Imani, please sit." He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "I trust your day off was restful?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for your understanding." Richard leaned back, studying her with the calculating gaze of a predator assessing potential prey. "I want to clear the air between us. What happened with Ms. Turner was unfortunate for everyone involved. I apologize for my reaction, Mr. Maxwell," Imani said carefully. "I was concerned about her welfare. She seemed troubled. She is troubled, unfortunately. Brilliant mind, but increasingly unstable. We tried to help her, but sometimes people refuse to be helped." He sighed, the picture of regretful compassion. "The police informed me that the USB drive contained nothing of consequence, just fragments of legitimate research corrupted by whatever amateur tampering she attempted." Imani nodded, lowering her eyes. "I see that now. I should have brought it directly to you instead of jumping to conclusions." Richard's smile widened slightly. "Water under the bridge. I value your 7 years of service too much to hold this misunderstanding against you." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. "In fact, I'm considering a significant raise for you, Imani. Marcus will be starting college soon, won't he? Engineering at UT, I believe." The casual mention of her son sent ice through Imani's veins. It wasn't a question. It was a reminder that he knew exactly who and what she cared about most. "That's very generous, sir," she managed. "We take care of loyal employees here, Imani." Speaking of which, Richard opened his desk drawer and withdrew a small box, sliding it across to her. "A new phone. The latest model. I understand yours has been unreliable recently." Imani stared at the box, understanding perfectly what this meant. A phone that would track her every movement, record her every conversation. A digital leash. "That's very kind, but not necessary. I insist." Richard cut her off, his tone hardening slightly. "Consider it a token of mutual trust. The old one stays home while you're working here. Company policy now, for all staff." Trapped, Imani accepted the box with a grateful murmur. As her fingers closed around it, Richard added casually, "I've taken the liberty of adding Marcus to our employee family scholarship program. Full tuition, regardless of what other financial aid he receives. A bright young man shouldn't be limited by finances, don't you agree?" The bribe was as transparent as it was generous, and threatening. "Accept our monitoring, our control, our version of events, and your son's future is secured. Reject it, and that's incredibly generous, Mr. Maxwell," Imani said, genuine emotion breaking through her careful facade. "I don't know what to say. Your continued loyalty is thanks enough." Richard stood, signaling the end of their meeting. "Diana has the household schedule for the coming weeks. We'll be entertaining some important overseas investors soon. I trust everything will run smoothly." "Of course, sir." As Imani left the study, the new phone felt like a lead weight in her pocket. She needed to inform Chen about this development immediately, but every move she made now would be watched more closely than ever. Over the next 3 days, Imani settled back into the household routine while carefully observing Richard's movements. The new phone remained in her locker during work hours, activated only when she left the estate. She used her legitimate breaks to send coded updates via the burner phone, hidden in a hollowed-out paperback in her purse. On the 4th day, she made her first significant discovery. While cleaning Richard's study during his morning workout session, she noticed him return unexpectedly, looking agitated. He didn't acknowledge her presence as he went straight to a landscape painting behind his desk, an original Wyeth that Diana had once bragged cost more than most people's homes. With practiced movements, Richard swung the painting forward on hidden hinges, revealing a wall safe. Imani kept her head down, dusting the bookshelves while watching from her peripheral vision. Richard blocked most of her view with his body, but she caught glimpses of him entering a combination. The safe door opened with a soft click. From within, he removed what appeared to be a leather-bound book, the logbook Chen had mentioned. Richard flipped through it rapidly, found what he was seeking, then made a brief phone call. "Harris, the Neurogen shipment needs to be moved up. Tomorrow night instead of Friday. Same procedure, different timetable." He listened briefly. "No, I don't care what excuses Patel gives you. Tell him either he's there to oversee it or he's out. Another pause. The usual entrance, 11 p.m. I'll update the access codes myself. After replacing the book and securing the safe, Richard left without ever acknowledging Imani's presence. As soon as she was alone, she quickly texted Chen. Painting hides safe. Shipment tomorrow night, 11 p.m. Patel involved. Access codes changing. The response came an hour later. Critical info. Need extraction plan for you tonight. Too dangerous now. Imani's heart raced. Leave tonight? What about Marcus? What about her position as their inside source? She waited until her lunch break to reply. Not yet. Can still help. We'll be careful. That evening, Richard hosted a small gathering of business associates. From the kitchen, Imani overheard fragments of conversation about breakthrough applications and military interest. One gray-haired man in an expensive suit mentioned something about memory selectivity trials before Richard smoothly changed the subject, his eyes darting briefly toward the staff. As Imani served coffee in the living room later, Diana pulled her aside with a brittle smile. Richard tells me Marcus has been added to our scholarship program. You must be thrilled. Very grateful, Mrs. Maxwell. Imani replied carefully. Diana's perfectly manicured hand gripped Imani's arm just a fraction too tightly. Family takes care of family, Imani. And the Maxwells consider loyal staff like family. Her smile never reached her cold eyes. Just remember, family loyalty goes both ways. Later that night, in the quiet of her apartment with Marcus already asleep, Imani received a text on the burner phone. Tomorrow night is our chance. Need you to ensure rear security gate code doesn't change. Can you access system? Imani thought carefully. The security system was controlled from a panel in Richard's study, but she had occasionally seen Thomas, the groundskeeper, input maintenance codes. Possibly, she texted back. Groundskeeper may have access. We'll try tomorrow morning. She lay awake for hours, the weight of what she had committed to pressing down on her. If she helped Chen's group access the property and they were caught, Richard would know immediately who was responsible. Her life, and Marcus's future, would be destroyed. But if she did nothing, how many more people would suffer like Angela? How many more would be acquired through less voluntary means for Richard's illegal experiments? The next morning brought unexpected news. Marcus greeted her at breakfast with excitement in his eyes. Mom, you won't believe it. I got an email from Max Tech about some special scholarship program. Full tuition plus housing. They want me to interview today. Imani froze, coffee cup halfway to her lips. Today? They want you to go to Max Tech today? Yeah, at 4 o'clock. They said Mr. Maxwell himself requested to meet me. Marcus was practically bouncing with excitement. This is huge, Mom. Do you think it has something to do with you working there? Richard's move was so obvious it was almost crude. Get Marcus into the building where he would be. What? A hostage? Leverage? Or something worse? That's wonderful, honey. She managed, setting down her coffee with a slightly trembling hand. But actually, Mr. Maxwell mentioned this to me. It was supposed to be a surprise for next week. There must have been a mix-up in scheduling. Marcus's face fell. So I shouldn't go today? Let me call and straighten it out, Imani said, forcing a reassuring smile. I'm sure they can reschedule when Mr. Maxwell is actually available to meet you. As soon as Marcus left for school, Imani texted Chen urgently. Emergency. They're trying to get my son to Max Tech today. Need immediate extraction for him. The reply came within minutes. Understood. Keep him home from school. Extraction team en route to your apartment. ETA 30 minutes. Pack 1 small bag each. Leave phones behind. Imani moved quickly, calling the school to report Marcus sick, then throwing essential items into 2 backpacks. She wrote a note for Marcus explaining that there was a family emergency, and they needed to leave immediately. When her son returned home, confused by her urgent summons, there was no time for detailed explanations. Marcus, I need you to trust me right now, she said, handing him his backpack. We need to leave for a few days. I'll explain everything when we're safe, but right now we have to go. To his credit, Marcus asked only one question. Are you in trouble, Mom? Imani looked into her son's eyes, seeing the child she had raised and the man he was becoming. Not me, honey, but I'm trying to help someone who is. Several people, actually. And the right thing isn't always the safe thing. Marcus nodded solemnly. Then we should do the right thing. A text arrived on the burner phone. Blue van outside. Driver will say Lazarus. Imani took one last look at the apartment that had been their home for the past 5 years, then led her son toward whatever uncertain future awaited them both. The blue van moved swiftly through Austin's midday traffic, its nondescript appearance belying the significance of its passengers. Imani sat in the back with Marcus, watching the familiar cityscape slide past the tinted windows. The driver, a taciturn man who had indeed identified himself with the password Lazarus, had spoken little since their departure. "Mom," Marcus said quietly, "I think it's time you told me what's going on." Imani looked at her son, his expression concerned but resolute, no trace of panic or accusation. She had raised him to face difficult truths, and he deserved nothing less than honesty now. "Richard Maxwell isn't who people think he is," she began, keeping her voice low. "His company is conducting illegal experiments on people, dangerous drug trials that the FDA shut down years ago." Marcus's eyes widened, but he listened silently as Imani explained the essentials. Angela's appearance at the service entrance, the evidence on the USB drive, Dr. Chen and the underground resistance, and Angela's current condition. She omitted the most disturbing details about how test subjects were acquired, but made it clear that lives were at stake. "So, this interview offer," Marcus said slowly, "wasn't really about a scholarship." "I don't think so," Imani admitted. "I think it was about controlling me, using you as leverage." A shadow crossed Marcus's face. "Or worse. If what you're saying is true, they might have." He didn't finish the thought. "That's why we had to leave immediately," Imani said, squeezing his hand. "I'm so sorry to drag you into this, but I couldn't let them get to you." The van turned onto a rural highway, heading east away from the city. Fields and scattered farmhouses replaced urban sprawl as they drove deeper into the Texas countryside. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked, peering out at the changing landscape. "Somewhere safe," the driver spoke for the first time since their departure. "Dr. Chen has a secondary location outside the city. Richard's influence doesn't extend there." After nearly an hour of driving, they turned onto a dirt road that wound through dense trees. Eventually, they emerged into a clearing where a modest farmhouse stood, its weathered exterior blending with the surrounding landscape. Several vehicles were parked nearby, including Dr. Chen's blue sedan. Inside, the farmhouse had been converted into an operations center. The living room contained computers and communication equipment. Maps and photographs covered one wall, with strings connecting various locations and people, a physical representation of the web surrounding Richard Maxwell. "Dr. Rai," Chen greeted them in the kitchen, her face drawn with fatigue but her eyes alert. "You made it, good." She extended a hand to Marcus. "You must be Marcus. I'm Dr. Eleanor Chen. Your mother is helping us with something extremely important." She explained some of it, Marcus replied, shaking her hand firmly. "I want to help too." Chen exchanged a glance with Imani, who nodded slightly. "We could use a tech-savvy mind," Chen acknowledged. "But first, let's get you both settled. David will show you to your rooms." David Park appeared in the doorway, looking more rested than when Imani had last seen him. "Angela's asking for you," he said to Imani. "She's having a good day, more lucid than she's been since we got her out." Imani followed him to a back bedroom that had been set up similarly to the makeshift medical space in the garage. Angela sat propped up against pillows. Some color returned to her cheeks. Her eyes brightened when she saw Imani. "You came," she said, her voice stronger than before. "I was worried they might have gotten to you." "They tried," Imani replied, taking a seat beside the bed. "But we're safe now. How are you feeling?" "Better. Memories are still fragmented, but clearer." Angela gestured to a notebook beside her. "I've been writing everything down as it comes back. Names, dates, procedures." Her expression darkened. "There are others still there, Imani. People who have no one looking for them. We're going to help them," Imani promised. "Tonight's operation is still on," Dr. Chen confirmed from the doorway. "But with modifications. We can no longer count on inside access to the Maxwell estate. Instead, we'll focus on the Neurogen facility directly." David pulled up a chair, his expression serious. "Based on the call you overheard, Richard is moving something important tonight at 11 p.m. Given what we know about Project Lazarus, it's likely either new test subjects or drug compounds. Or both," Angela added grimly. "The operation is expanding. Last week, Richard secured military funding through back channels, private contractors acting as intermediaries." Chen nodded. "Our government contact confirmed it. Officially, it's for advanced cognitive enhancement research. Unofficially, they're interested in the memory suppression applications. Imagine soldiers who could be programmed to forget classified operations," David explained. "Or witnesses who could be made to forget crimes they've seen." The implication sent a chill through Imani. So what's the plan for tonight? Chen moved to a map spread across a small table. The Neurogen facility is here, an abandoned MaxTech storage warehouse 15 miles outside Austin. She pointed to a remote industrial area. Security is minimal to avoid drawing attention, but the interior is well protected. We've identified 3 potential entry points. Our team will split into 2 units, David continued. The first will create a diversion at the main entrance during the scheduled delivery. The second will access through this maintenance door at the rear. What are we looking for exactly? Imani asked. 2 objectives, Chen replied. First, documentation, physical evidence of the illegal trials that can't be corrupted or deleted. Second, if possible, extraction of any current test subjects. It's a high-risk operation, David admitted. Richard's security people are ex-military, and we don't know exactly how many staff will be on site tonight. That's where I can help. Marcus spoke from the doorway where he had been listening silently. I can hack into their security system. All heads turned toward him. Imani's immediate instinct was to protect her son from further involvement, but the determined set of his jaw was all too familiar. Marcus, she began cautiously, this is dangerous. I know, he interrupted gently, but I've been building network penetration tools for my computer science project. If they have digital security, I might be able to access it. Give you eyes inside before you go in. Chen looked intrigued. What would you need? Their network IP range and any information about their system architecture, Marcus replied without hesitation, and a secure laptop with the right software. David exchanged glances with Chen. The kid might be our best shot at avoiding a confrontation. If we can see inside, it's worth exploring, Chen agreed, then turned to Imani. But it's your call. He's your son. Imani studied Marcus's face, the same determined expression he wore when tackling difficult problems, the same courage he'd shown throughout his life when facing challenges. He was no longer a child to be shielded, but a young man making his own choices. If he stays here away from the actual operation, she said finally, and only provides remote support. Marcus nodded eagerly. I can do this, Mom. Let me help. The next few hours were a flurry of preparation. Imani helped Angela record her returning memories while Marcus worked with David to gather information on Neurogen systems. The rest of Chen's team, 3 more former MaxTech employees with their own reasons to fear Richard, prepared equipment and reviewed floor plans. By late afternoon, a breakthrough came when Marcus successfully accessed a back door into Neurogen's security network. It's basic stuff, he explained, his fingers flying across the keyboard. They were more concerned about physical security than digital. I've got access to their camera feeds. The team gathered around his laptop, watching as he cycled through different security cameras inside the facility. The images confirmed Angela's descriptions. A central laboratory area with medical equipment, smaller rooms with hospital beds, and what appeared to be a secure storage area for drugs and compounds. There, Angela pointed to a screen showing a hallway with 6 doors. Holding rooms. That's where they keep the test subjects. I count 4 security guards on rotation, David noted, studying the feeds, plus what looks like 3 medical staff. Chen turned to her team. This changes our approach. With interior visibility, we can coordinate more precisely. Marcus, can you access their door controls? Working on it, Marcus replied, his focus intense. Their system is segmented. Security cameras are on one network, door controls on another, but I think I can bridge them. As evening approached, the final plan took shape. David would lead the extraction team while Chen coordinated from the farmhouse. Imani, despite her desire to participate directly, would remain behind with Marcus and Angela. Your role now is witness and custodian of information, Chen explained. If anything happens to us, you'll be the backup plan, the one who can still expose Richard with Angela's testimony and what we've gathered. At 10 p.m., the team prepared to depart. Dressed in dark clothing and equipped with communication devices, they moved with the focused efficiency of people who understood the stakes. Imani embraced David briefly. Be careful, she whispered, and thank you for everything. We'll be back before dawn, he promised, with evidence and hopefully survivors. As the vehicles disappeared down the dirt road, the farmhouse fell quiet. Marcus remained glued to his laptop, monitoring the security feeds and maintaining communication with the team. Angela, exhausted by the day's activities, had fallen asleep in her room. Imani paced nervously, feeling simultaneously central to the mission and helplessly peripheral. Mom, Marcus called suddenly, his voice tight with alarm. "Something's wrong. There's a new vehicle at the facility. A black SUV with tinted windows. Not part of the scheduled delivery." Imani rushed to his side, staring at the screen where a sleek vehicle had pulled up to the main entrance. The security camera captured 3 figures emerging, 2 large men in suits, and between them, a familiar silhouette that made Imani's blood freeze. Richard Maxwell himself. "He's not supposed to be there," she whispered. "Angela said he never visits the facility directly. Too risky. I need to warn the team," Marcus said, reaching for the communication device. He spoke rapidly into it. "David, primary target on site. Repeat. Maxwell is at the facility. 3-person entourage, entering through main doors now." The response came back crackling with static. "Understood, holding position, wait for..." The transmission cut off abruptly. "David?" Marcus tried again. "Chen, anyone copy?" Nothing but silence answered. Imani felt a creeping dread. "Try the security feeds again." Marcus cycled through the cameras, but where there had been clear images before, now each screen showed the same message. "Signal lost. They've cut the feeds," Marcus muttered, typing frantically. "Or blocked my access somehow." "Could they have detected your intrusion?" Imani asked, her heart racing. Marcus shook his head. "I was using a ghost protocol. Unless..." His fingers stopped suddenly. "Unless they were expecting it. Mom, what if this is a trap?" Before Imani could respond, the distant sound of vehicles approaching cut through the night. Not from the direction the team had departed, but from the main road. Headlights swept across the windows as multiple cars turned onto the dirt path toward the farmhouse. "Wake Angela," Imani ordered, already moving toward the back door. "We need to leave. Now." Marcus closed his laptop and rushed to Angela's room while Imani quickly gathered the most essential evidence. Angela's notebooks, the backup drives with Marcus's security footage, and the burner phone with their communications history. Angela was disoriented but understanding of the urgency. "The storm cellar," she managed as Marcus helped her to her feet. "Behind the barn, Chen showed me. Emergency escape route." They slipped out the back door just as the first vehicle pulled into the clearing. Through the trees, Imani glimpsed men with flashlights spreading out around the farmhouse. The barn stood 50 yards away, its dark silhouette barely visible in the moonlight. "Stay low," she whispered, supporting Angela on one side while Marcus helped on the other. They moved as quickly as Angela's condition allowed, keeping to the shadows at the edge of the clearing. The sound of the farmhouse door being forced open spurred them to greater speed. Behind the barn, partially hidden by tall grass, they found the storm cellar doors. Marcus pulled them open, revealing concrete steps descending into darkness. They helped Angela down first, then followed, closing the heavy doors behind them. Marcus's phone provided enough light to reveal a narrow tunnel extending from the cellar's far wall. Chen said it leads to a secondary exit, half a mile through the woods. Angela whispered. "Comes out near an old fire road." They moved slowly through the cramped tunnel, the earthy smell of damp soil surrounding them. Angela struggled but pushed forward with determination. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a metal ladder leading up to another trap door. Marcus climbed first, pushing it open cautiously and peering out. "Clear," he whispered down. "We're in some kind of shed." They emerged into a small groundskeeper's hut, abandoned but still standing. Through its single grimy window they could make out a narrow dirt track, the fire road Angela had mentioned. "Now what?" Marcus asked, helping Angela to a sitting position against the wall. Imani checked the burner phone. "No signal. We need to reach Chen or David, warn them it's a trap. If Richard is at the facility, he's expecting them," Angela said weakly. "He knew about your escape, about this place. Which means, there's a leak," Imani finished grimly. "Someone in Chen's group is working for Richard." Marcus peered out the window again. "There's no vehicle here. We'll have to move on foot until we can find help or get a signal." Angela struggled to her feet. "I'll slow you down. You two go ahead." "Not happening," Imani cut her off firmly. "We stay together. Marcus, help me with her. We'll follow the fire road but stay in the tree line for cover." They set off into the night, Angela supported between them, moving as quickly as her condition allowed. The sounds of pursuit from the farmhouse had faded, but Imani harbored no illusions. Richard's men would find the tunnel eventually. After nearly an hour of difficult progress, they reached a paved secondary road. In the distance, headlights appeared, approaching slowly. Imani pulled them deeper into the cover of trees. "Could be them looking for us," she whispered. As the vehicle drew closer, They could make out the outline of a police cruiser, moving at patrol speed along the deserted road. "Police?" Marcus whispered. "Can we trust them?" "Richard has influence with local police," Angela warned, "but not all of them." Imani made a split-second decision. "Stay hidden," she instructed. "If anything happens to me, keep moving. Find David or Chen if you can." She pressed the bundle of evidence into Marcus's hands. "This is what matters now." Before either could protest, she stepped out onto the road, waving her arms to flag down the cruiser. It slowed immediately, spotlight swinging to illuminate her. "Help!" she called, shielding her eyes from the bright light. "Please, I need help!" The cruiser stopped and a female officer emerged cautiously, one hand near her weapon. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "My name is Imani Johnson," she said clearly, hands visible. "I have information about illegal human experimentation being conducted by Richard Maxwell of MaxTech Solutions. There are people in danger right now at a facility called Neurogen Analytics." The officer's posture changed, not reaching for her weapon but not relaxing either. "That's a serious allegation, ma'am. Do you have any evidence of these claims?" "Yes," Imani replied, her heart pounding. "And witnesses. But first, I need to know, has there been any report of an incident at an industrial facility outside of town tonight?" The officer studied her for a long moment before responding. "There was a call about suspicious activity at an abandoned warehouse about 20 minutes ago. Units were dispatched." She paused. "How did you know about that?" "Because people I know might be walking into a trap," Imani explained urgently. "Please, I need to use your radio. Lives depend on it." The officer hesitated, then made a decision. "Get in the car, ma'am. We'll sort this out at the station." "There's no time," Imani insisted. "Richard Maxwell is at that facility right now. He's expecting an intrusion." "My friends—" "Wait," the officer interrupted, her expression changing. "Did you say Richard Maxwell? The tech CEO?" "Yes. He's running illegal drug trials, memory alteration experiments on unwilling subjects. I have proof." The officer's hand moved to her radio. "Unit 47 to dispatch. I need to speak to the FBI task force. Priority channel." After a brief pause, she spoke again in a lower voice. "Potential Lazarus witness located. Request immediate secure transport and notification to Special Agent Ramirez." Imani stared in confusion as the officer turned back to her with a completely different demeanor. "Ms. Johnson, I'm Officer Cortez. I'm part of a joint task force that's been investigating MaxTech for the past 8 months. We need your evidence and testimony." Relief washed over Imani like a physical force. "There are others," she said, turning toward the trees. "Marcus, Angela, it's safe." As her son and Angela emerged cautiously from the darkness, Officer Cortez spoke rapidly into her radio, requesting medical assistance and additional units. The tide, it seemed, had finally begun to turn against Richard Maxwell. But what of David, Chen, and the others heading into Richard's trap? As Officer Cortez helped them into her cruiser, Imani could only hope they hadn't arrived too late to warn them. The fluorescent lights of the FBI field office cast harsh shadows across the conference room, where Imani, Marcus, and Angela had spent the last 6 hours. Empty coffee cups and sandwich wrappers littered the table as they recounted everything, from Angela's first discovery of the diverted compounds to Imani's final escape from the farmhouse. Special Agent Ramirez, a stern-faced woman with penetrating eyes, studied the evidence spread before her. Angela's notebooks, the security footage Marcus had captured, and the communication logs from the burner phone. "We've been building a case against Maxwell for months," she explained. "Financial irregularities, suspicious disappearances of former employees, unusual shipping patterns to the Neurogen facility. But we lacked concrete evidence of what was happening inside." "What about Dr. Chen and the others?" Imani asked, the question that had been haunting her since their rescue. Ramirez's expression softened slightly. 3 arrested, including Dr. Chen. 2 wounded, including David Park, but stable condition. 1 casualty. Angela closed her eyes briefly in pain. Imani reached for her hand. "And Richard?" Marcus asked. "In custody as of 40 minutes ago," Ramirez confirmed, along with 5 Neurogen staff and Diana Maxwell. "We found 12 test subjects at the facility, all alive, though many with significant memory impairment." A wave of emotions washed over Imani. Relief, vindication, grief for the unknown person who hadn't survived, and lingering anxiety about what came next. "The Mole and Chen's group?" she asked. Former MaxTech security officer. Turned after Richard threatened his family. Ramirez gathered the evidence carefully. "Your testimonies will be crucial in the coming trial. It won't be easy." Richard has resources, connections. He'll fight this every step. We'll be ready, Angela said with quiet determination. 3 months later, Imani stood on the courthouse steps beside Marcus, watching as Richard Maxwell was led away in handcuffs after being denied bail a second time. The investigation had uncovered horrors beyond even what they had initially suspected. 27 victims identified so far, some permanently damaged by the experimental compounds. The media frenzy had been intense. Tech mogul's house of horrors and memory manipulation nightmare dominated headlines for weeks. Max Tech's stock had collapsed, its board disavowing all knowledge of Richard's unauthorized activities. "Mom," Marcus said quietly, "Professor Williams called about the engineering program. They've confirmed my scholarship. The real one this time." Imani smiled, embracing her son. Since that night, he had matured in ways that went beyond his years, supporting her through testimony preparation, helping Angela recover fragments of her memory, and still somehow maintaining his academic excellence. "Doctor," Chen approached them, looking tired but resolute. After her release on bail, she had become the public face of the survivors, coordinating care for those recovering from Richard's experiments. "The military contractors have been indicted," she informed them, "and 3 more former test subjects have come forward. Their testimonies corroborate everything." Imani nodded, gazing out at the assembled press. "Will it be enough?" "It has to be," Chen replied. "The walls of silence he built are crumbling. People are finally listening." As they descended the courthouse steps together, Imani reflected on how completely her life had transformed. From invisible housekeeper to key witness in one of the decade's most shocking criminal cases. The future remained uncertain. The trial would be grueling, recovery for the victims ongoing, justice still to be secured. But watching Angela speak confidently to reporters, seeing Marcus stand tall beside her, Imani knew one thing with absolute certainty. Silence and wealth could no longer protect the guilty. Sometimes all it took was one person willing to see what others ignored, one moment of courage to bring down an empire built on suffering. Behind her, the imposing courthouse stood as a promise that even the most powerful could be held accountable, and beside her walked the living proof that compassion could triumph over cruelty. The invisible woman had been seen at last, and in being seen she had changed everything. Subscribe to The Maid Secret for full stories with shocking twists. Like the video and comment your city and local time to appear in future credits.